Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial. Today we're going to look at the ship's captain's cabins. Iowa-class battleships were actually designed with 3 separate cabins for the ship's commanding officer, and additional cabins for other flag officers and captains that were part of their staff. So we're going to look at those 3 spaces, and we're starting here in the captain's Inport Cabin. So this is the Inport Cabin, where the captain could stay when the ship was in port. We are several stories beneath the bridge, so if there was any emergency while the ship was underway, the captain would be too far to respond. That said, there isn't enough room around the bridge for a luxurious space like this one. And oftentimes the captain of a U.S. Navy ship, particularly a capital ship like this one, would be a senior representative for the United States in whatever port or country that the ship is stopped in. The United States doesn't necessarily have diplomats everywhere around the world, so many times senior military officers like the captain of a battleship would take over diplomatic responsibilities. So this space would be needed to host foreign dignitaries, or even American dignitaries. President Ronald Reagan came into this space in 1982. The entertainer Bob Hope spent some time in this space, both in the 1960s and in the 1980s. And other various foreign dignitaries, such as the President of Korea and a prince from Denmark, were in here at various times. So this space is large, luxurious, there's a dining area, and it's of course where the ship's silver is housed. So this is approximately half of the ship's silver collection. The silver was commissioned by the state of New Jersey around 1906, when the first battleship New Jersey, BB-16, was built. They paid Tiffany's and Company of New York $10,000 to make about 60 to 80 pieces of silver for that ship. When that ship was decommissioned in the 1920s, the silver went back to the governor of New Jersey. When the ship was recommissioned, or when a new New Jersey was commissioned in 1943, Governor Edison of New Jersey gave the silver plus an extra $10,000 worth of silver that he had added to the set because the ship was much larger than the earlier battleship, to BB-62, the current battleship that we're on. At that point, there would have been somewhere between 100 and 120 pieces in the set. It probably lived in crates in the Pearl Harbor area or maybe in Philadelphia during World War II. Stuff like this was not traditionally carried when the ships were in an active war zone. Between the wars, it probably went back to the governor's mansion. When the ship was recommissioned in the 1950s, it was brought on board. And in addition to the Korean War, the ship did a number of diplomatic duties around the world as part of the midshipmen's cruises that she went on. She decommissioned in 1957, goes back to the governor's mansion, comes back in the 60s when she goes to Vietnam, and goes back to the governor's mansion again after that, comes back in the 80s when the ship is in service, and then reverts to the governor's mansion again in the 90s. Now, technically, the silver belongs to the U.S. Navy. When the ship is in use, the silver comes to the ship. When the ship is not in use, the silver goes to the governor's mansion, where the governor can use it to host special events. New Jersey has more governor's mansions than any other state, and the silver, when it's at the governor's mansion, usually resides at Drumthwacket, which is where a lot of the Christmas holiday entertaining takes place. When the ship was opened as a museum, it couldn't be determined whether the ship was in use or not. She's certainly not in use in the traditional sense. However, she is still very much being used. So it was eventually decided that half of the silver would live here on the ship where it can be displayed. The other half would live at the governor's mansion for entertaining important dignitaries. The ship would obviously love to get the full set back, but this is a workable compromise. We can at least show some of the collection.
So this is the captain's stateroom, a part of the Inport Cabin. This is where he would sleep when the ship was in port. An interesting thing to note here is all the cabinetry in this space. Notice the wood grain on it. It's actually made out of metal like normal wooden cabinets. Traditionally, a space like this would be opulent, well-appointed, and fancy-looking, and that meant wood furnishings for the officers, especially the commanding officer. Early in World War II, this wood furnishing burned when some of our major ships were lost at Pearl Harbor and off Guadalcanal. So by the time New Jersey came around in 1943, they had removed the wooden furniture and replaced it with non-flammable metal furniture, but still needed to make it look fancy. So some artistic genius at the Philadelphia Navy Yard was able to paint this wood grain pattern into all the metal furnishings, and it's pretty convincing. The captain has a couple of amenities befitting his position. One, he has his own private bathroom. Two, he has a call button here by his bed, and other ones in the stateroom, or in the other part of the room itself. And the call button here call a Marine orderly who would be stationed by the door at all times. And another one would call the pantry if the captain wants one of his stewards to clean something, bring him food, something along those lines. This is the captain's pantry. Food could be brought up here from the officer's galley via a dumbwaiter. And then final preparations could be made here and it could be served from here. Because of the captain's vast responsibilities, he may not be able to eat meals at normal times. And he does not eat his meals in the wardroom with the other officers unless invited. So, he has his own steward who prepares his food for him, and he can ask for anything he wants at any time. As an officer, he pays for his own food. It is not provided for him like an enlisted man. So if he wants a grilled cheese at midnight when he gets off of watch, he can push his call button and the orderly will come in here and make it for him. The 19 individuals pictured on this wall are the ship's various commanding officers from the World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War, and 1980s periods. All of them were officers in the United States Navy who had long-standing careers, and most of them made the rank of admiral. To become a captain of a battleship, you have to be both experienced and well-respected, and it's usually a stepping stone to greater rank. If you can successfully command a battleship like this one, especially in wartime, then you are a prime candidate to be promoted to flag rank and become an admiral. This much smaller space is the captain's at-sea cabin. We're directly aft of the chart house, which is aft of the navigation bridge on the 04 level. So if there is any sort of emergency at all, somebody from out there can come in and grab the captain. So obviously this space is nowhere near as opulent as the Inport Cabin down below, so we wouldn't be doing much entertaining here. But really, the captain still had access to that space at all times. He would mostly just be sleeping up here whenever he could, so he didn't need too much in the way of luxury. Phones and other communication devices are of course important, but other than that, nothing else is too big a deal. Again, he does have his own bathroom and shower. Inexplicably, New Jersey has a ship alteration that doesn't show up on the blueprints, in that the captain's shower has access both from the captain's head and stateroom here, but also from the other side near the navigation officer's office. So for whatever reason, there's a door where people can come into his shower, right into the stand-up shower from the outside there. So this space we're in now was used as the meteorological office in the 1980s, but prior to that, it was a third captain's cabin and a second captain's at sea cabin. So if the ship was being conned from the '08 navigation bridge, which is straight through this door here, the captain would sleep in this space, which would have been set up more like the at-sea cabin 4 decks below us. In the 1980s, because the ship was normally conned from the '04 level, this space was deleted so it could become half of our meteorological suite, the second half being 1 story above us. Thank you guys for tuning in today. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and check all of our different social media sites for more content every day.